Hello. Tonight, just a few minutes ago, we watched Justice League Warworld, the newest in the extensive library of DC animated movies. Connor, what is the plot of Warworld?
Warworld sees Wonder Woman transferred to, in the Western world, Batman to kind of a Conan-style fantasy world, and Superman transferred to sort of a Twilight Zone type of deal. And it turns out the main villain is Mongol, and they must fight Mongol to essentially save the world. But it turns out that there's a bigger threat ahead. Spoilers ahead, everybody.
Yes.
So this is our special guest, Yoda Joe 93 from Yoda Joe 93.
Yes, sir.
So, Joe, what did you think of Justice League Warworld? Our special guest. This is his first time on Drunkview. Everybody
Yes, it
applaud.
Yes, thanks. Okay, so my first thoughts on this movie is I think this movie is okay. I don't think it's top tier DC, but I don't think it's the worst one I've watched. But I do have some issues. I do think that there are some good actions and there's some blood, but the plot of this movie feels, it's a 90-minute movie, and I feel like they cram a lot in the movie, and
Right.
like you don't have a lot of time to catch your breath because you're watching, oh, here's cool action, and then when the story's progressing, there's a couple things that are like, okay, well, Mongol, I don't know if his design's that great, and then he comes into the plot, it's interesting. How Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman come together is interesting. I like how they're in their separate worlds. The whole amnesia thing is interesting, but yeah, I think this is an okay animated movie.
Right.
Aiden, what are your first thoughts on this one?
Oh, sure. I think the animation is really nice.
I do really like. I don't remember specifically what they call this animated universe, but it started like 7 or 8 films ago.
Yeah.
And most of the DC movies are this animation style.
True.
And it's a decent, consistent animation style.
Yeah, they've been rocking with the thicker outlines and definitely higher budget.
It's
than
got
they
kind of
used
a
to
comic
be.
book feel.
I agree.
Where some of the old ones just
Solid
kind of have
style.
that cheap animation feel.
Yeah, it definitely
This is
has
still
that.
cheap, but it's definitely more comic booky, which I appreciate.
I think the gimmick of this one is kind of neat with the 3 different stories set in different times and the different versions of the heroes, although honestly, the Wonder Woman Jonah Hex one was kind of mediocre. And I completely lost all interest in the Batman Conan thing. I liked the Superman as like a detective noir story.
Yeah.
One of the best. And then at the end, when it all comes together, when it's revealed that those were all like illusions, I liked the Superman one, and then when it all comes together, like the Martian Manhunter stuff is okay. I don't know anything about these characters because I don't read comics, but I thought the evil alien looked kind of cool. And then Lobo seemed kind of weird and annoying to me, but I don't know. Like, I think that's just how he's supposed to be.
Lobo is a weird and annoying character. He's kind of like Deadpool, but shittier.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Lobo fan, to be honest. A lot of like 90s DC heads are, and 90s DC is like my favorite time period for DC.
Right.
Where it's like peak canon.
That
in terms
sense.
of there's so much canon,
Lobo
and
kind of
there's so much
like
stuff, but it's clean still.
Lobo was kind of a
Lobo
weird
sucks.
extra element in this, where like there's the alien villains and they kidnap Martian Manhunter, but then
Yeah, I normally like
Lobo's
Lobo.
just kind of there and
Yeah, it's weird because I normally like Lobo, but here he feels unnecessary. Like we don't need him. I get they needed him to like, I guess like bring everyone into this like scenario in this room for Lobo, but you could have got anyone to do that. It doesn't have to be Lobo.
Well, we also finished this movie 10-ish minutes ago, and I've already forgotten until you guys mentioned that Lobo was in it.
Yeah.
What's the villain guy?
Mongol.
Mongol, yeah.
Is Mongol related to Brainiac? I know that character.
Not really.
No.
He's also a
No.
Superman villain.
So Mongol
He's
was
also a
basically
Superman
Yeah.
villain who goes and collects things.
So
from
Mongol was in
alternate
the Justice
universes.
League animated show, and basically the whole concept of him is he goes and gets these heroes,
That's
and he
what
likes
Brainiac
to
does.
pit them against each other.
That's
It's like
what Brainiac does.
it's like, so think like with Marvel, with how in Secret Wars how you have the whole Battle World thing. This movie reminds me of that, but
I'm not gonna
shittier.
lie.
Like it's a shittier version of Battle World.
Yeah.
I literally thought
yeah.
that Mongol was Brainiac.
You know, you're not wrong. When I first saw him, I thought the same thing.
He's yellow instead of green. But in the comics, Mongol's a ripped ass dude who just beats the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
And in this, he's
So-
just a twink.
Yeah.
So Mongol's a yellow man who goes to various planets to collect specimens he thinks are worth saving.
Yep.
And Brainiac is a green man who travels to various planets.
Pretty much.
No,
To collect-
in the comics, Mongol's a fucking douche. Like, he blows up Star City in the shape of a star
Yep.
because he thought it'd be funny.
That is funny.
And
Yeah,
then,
he does that.
and then, or not Star City, Central City,
Oh yeah,
which
City
is Hal
of the Flash.
Jordan's.
Oh no, that would
No,
be
what's-
Coast City. You're thinking
Coast
of Coast City.
City, there
Yes.
you go. They're all fucking the same.
Yeah, they all have different
Random
names.
ass names. He blows up Coast City, and then Hal Jordan's like, I'm real sad that Coast City got blown up. And Superman's like, there, champ. And then he's like, fuck you, Superman, I'm gonna become Parallax. And then Mongol is like, hey, I didn't do anything, really. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, up until this review started, when you guys started calling him Mongol, I was like, oh, that's Brainiac. I know that guy. I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that
no,
was
he's
him.
yellow.
When I first saw him, because the lighting was kind of weird at first, I did kind of detect. I knew from the trailer that it was me Mongol, but I still was like, oh wait, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, it's Mongol. like you just
I don't know.
you knew, but it's not enough because you're looking at it and you're like, oh, this guy is this guy, but like you forget because it's not one of those characters that you think about very often.
If they had just called him Brainiac, I wouldn't have questioned it.
Yeah, that's true.
I
mean,
don't know who Mongol is. I know who Brainiac is.
He's a fucking Chad. In
'Cause
the,
of-
look at him in the comics, bro. He's a fucking Chad.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Oh, he looks way cooler.
He's
Yeah.
a rip dude. He's
But
a lot
also-
easier to tell that he's not Brainiac.
In the comics, he looks like a yellow version
Look
of
at
that
him.
other guy.
He's
Yeah.
big. He's
Yeah.
beefy.
That's-
He's
they-
like John
they-
Cena.
He's
They
just
clearly-
yellow
They did him
dark
dirty.
side.
They clearly did not look at the design input
I mean,
for
if
this
that
character.
version of Mongol showed up, then I'd be like, why is Darkseid here? He's just yellow Darkseid.
And
Yeah,
Mongol
no,
2 was in the Sinestro Corps.
Yeah, that's true. So he was in the
He was
Sinestro
a Sinestro. He was a Sinestro for a while.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just
I
one of
used
those
to have
things.
as a kid. And I don't remember if you remember this, but as a kid I had the toy of Mongol. He was like this big and he had all the Sinestro rings on
Oh, I
him.
do remember that one. Yeah.
Pretty
He was
cool.
really big.
Anyway, yeah, the movie was okay. I think the idea of a bunch of vignettes of different alternate universe superheroes could be fun, but I think the only one that really works is like the Superman 1950s UFO conspiracy noir one,
Right.
and all the other ones are kind of dull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The ending stuff is decent enough. The art's good. And Connor, what'd you think of the movie?
I didn't love it. I thought it was a little lame.
I agree.
Here's my problem. I like the end. I like the idea of the end. I thought each vignette was like, cool, and then it overstayed its welcome. It has the same problem as The French Dispatch by Wes Anderson, where it's like, oh, this is a cool idea for a vignette, and then it's just not executed super
Yeah.
well, and it gets boring. Like, I liked, my favorite personally was actually the Western Wonder Woman, because I'm a big fan of Westerns, but even that was kind of meh.
Yeah.
And then the Superman one I found dull end to end, even though I liked the idea of like a Twilight Zone mystery. And I'm not a big fantasy guy, so I didn't love Batman's vignette either. So it fell short for me, man.
Yeah, nothing really
The
really
whole
grabbed
movie
down.
did. It just never grabbed me, which is my problem. I don't think it's a bad movie, like technically. Like the animation is great, the writing and voice acting is really good. My problem is mostly with It just didn't grab me, man.
The story wasn't engaging. You didn't feel
Right.
like the story was very engaging. And for something that is a precursor to Crisis, this doesn't really do justice. I hope Crisis is at least 2 hours or an hour longer than this, because the whole 90 minutes to tell this story, just it feels like they just kept going to one specific scene over and over again. Going
Crisis
more,
has got to be
I
either
don't know
two
what
parts.
Crisis is.
We'll explain it to you.
So Crisis on
Like
Infinite
I know
Earths-
that Crisis, they had so many comic universes that it was overwhelming, and they just crushed them all into one. But I don't know nothing else.
So
about
Crisis on Infinite Earths is this crossover where basically, so Marvel, you know, they got Secret Wars coming out in a couple of years. This was their Secret Wars, but done better, because basically what they did was they
had
had
George Perez and Marv
Yep.
Wolfman, which those are
they had some of the best comic book artists
People in the
ever
80s,
working on it,
right.
and so they basically what they did is they made this big event because a lot of people in the comics are like, you know, I think Barry Allen's a dick. I think Supergirl, Kara, you know, those characters don't work for me. And then they had a bunch of fans write them in and said, well, you know what? We're gonna make you care for these characters, and then we're gonna take them from you and make the ultimate sacrifice that you can. So you have Barry make the ultimate sacrifice for the entire multiverse. His entire suit and his skin just bleed into a skeleton just instantly.
Yeah.
And he becomes the pure energy of the Speed
And
Force.
Superman from Earth 2,
Yep.
the Superman from Action Comics #1, the original,
Yep.
ends up on a piece of space rubble as all of the universes are merged or deleted.
Yeah.
And he ends up going to New Earth, which is the Earth that is created. So
Yep.
Superman from Action Comics #1 is also just another guy who's on New Earth as a separate
Yep.
character. But you can't forget during the crossover as well, Superboy from Earth Prime also comes over.
Yep.
But he
Is that
becomes
the gay
evil during Infinite Crisis.
Yep.
And he punches the multiverse so hard that it cracks and causes the multiverse that got deleted during Crisis on Infinite Earths to open back up and become a thing again.
Is Superboy the gay one?
No, that's Superboy Jonathan Kent. See, there's
Yeah.
Superboy, who's Clark Kent of Earth Prime. There's Superboy, who's Connor Kent, who's a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor. And then there's Superboy, who's Jonathan Kent, who is the son of Lois and Superman. But there's also Superboy of Earth 1, which is the first Earth 1 comics were in... Okay, so in the Golden Age, it's Earth 2.
Yep.
In the Silver Age, it's Earth 1. And then after Crisis, those Earths combine into New Earth, but Superman from Earth 2 survives and goes into it. But then there's an Earth called Earth Prime, which is unrelated to the new Earth Prime, which I'll get to in a second. They come to New Earth, but then during the Flashpoint paradox, New Earth becomes Prime Earth, which is unrelated to Earth Prime, which is where Superboy Prime is from. So
Yeah.
now does it all make sense to you?
He looks confused.
Which one of these worlds has Batman in it?
All of them.
So there's a Batman in every universe.
Batman 2, Robin becomes Batman 2, and he has a bat symbol
Which
with
Robin?
a 2. Dick Grayson, because he's the only Robin in Earth 2, Aiden.
Yep.
Don't be silly.
So Batman didn't have sex in Earth 2?
No, he did with Catwoman. And Catwoman and him have a baby, which is the Huntress. But then in Earth 1, Huntress was retconned into being this daughter of an Italian mob family.
Yep.
So that explains it all to you.
And they retconned it from day one.
Huntress is
Makes
Dick
total
Grayson.
sense.
Huntress is the love child of Batman and Catwoman in Earth 2. Helena Wayne.
Yeah.
But then in the current continuity, she's the daughter of a crime boss.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the daughter of Frank Bertinelli.
Yep.
So that's basically the main.
Huntress in the main continuity is completely different than Helen Wayne.
Yep. Yep. It's very different. So yeah. So now you understand Crisis, but like you'll understand more hopefully as more time goes
Hopefully
on.
the movie's great and it explains it well.
Yeah, that's the hope. Hopefully it digests for people like that are able to tell. I mean, I think with Crisis, like the hope for sure is that that Crisis is better than this, but also Crisis has to be because it's Crisis. If you fuck up Crisis, you're gonna make a lot of people angry. So it's like, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not. This movie is definitely like. The best way to point is this movie is average. The best way to really put it is there's nice animation, there's some cool action, but you have seen in a lot of the other animated movies, the storylines are better, some of the action is better utilized, and here it's like we have our characters that were good, we have good voice cast, good continuation of this roster of DC characters that we've known for a long time, but here they're just kind of, everyone's met.
Right.
It's all like you're not invested in the characters. You're not invested in. Who they are.
I thought Jensen's Batman voice wasn't as good as it was in previous movies.
I agree. I feel like
think
it's
he
more
might have been going
obvious.
for something different with the amnesia, but
Yeah, I think so too.
I thought he was kind of doing like a ode to Conroy, but also his own thing before, and this one just sounds gravelly.
This one just feels like he was trying too hard to be like Soldier Boy, but he's playing Batman.
Right.
So it feels like he's just trying so hard. I don't know if it's because he's trying to see if he can do it on his own without like whatever stuff they use to make him sound like Conroy. I don't know what their thing is. I believe he's a good voice actor. I believe that in the past he could. This one just, it feels lazy. Whoever worked on this, it just feels like they did not care what they were making with this movie. And
I
it's really
kind of
sad.
have the infinite problem with these animated Batmans where they're not Conroy, man. Conroy is the greatest of all time Batman.
Yeah.
Without exception. Like, there's no one who comes close.
Right.
And I hear other people, and it's like, it's too different, it's too similar. Conroy just perfected it. It's crazy that how good Batman the Animated Series is, that you also have a perfect Joker voice and a perfect Batman voice, and even live action has never come close to either.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I'm just dick riding it, but they actually are just perfect in the roles.
It's true.
Like when I read a Batman comic, I kind of project a voice in my head a little bit, and no other character is really the voice that of any live action or animated particularly, but Batman always comes through as that Conroy voice.
I know what you mean, because whenever I read a Batman comic or or even a Batman and Joker comic, you always have in your mind, you always have, you're hearing Conroy's voice when it comes to any time with Batman, and then when you're reading a Joker thing, even if Batman's chasing the Joker, whatever it is, you're envisioning Mark Hamill. You instantly know, like people talk about Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, but people think about, like, that's why people might get mad at me for this, like, as good as Heath Ledger is in The Dark Knight, when I think of Joker, Mark Hamill is still the Joker to me. No matter what anyone says.
I think Heath Ledger works well for
that universe.
My favorite Joker is Jared Leto.
Of course it is.
Sexual predator.
I knew he was going to say that. He was going to say something to make it super not great that doesn't...
Oh wait, did you pass thoughts to me? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he passed thoughts.
Anyways,
yeah,
I mean, like,
Jared Leto is a sexual predator. Anyways, allegedly.
We've talked about a lot of stuff. I think I'm going to take a second to chill me and Joe's podcast. It's the Joe and Connor Power Hour. It drops on both of our channels. Watch it, because this week we're talking about DC animated films. Not really this film, but like all sorts of DC movies.
I agree, yeah.
And the two that are announced, which...
Once my iPhone for extra stuff.
I think we save our thoughts on Watchmen and Crisis until we talk about it in the podcast. But,
I agree.
But, check it out. That'll probably come out before this. They'll probably both come out on the same day or within a day of each other. But if you're watching this and you didn't watch that, check that out too. We're working hard on the podcast. It's doing pretty okay so far. So
absolutely,
help us out, boys. Help us out. We need the boys. We need the boys out there to support the Joe and Connor Power Hour.
Yes, sir.
Anyways, Joe, would you recommend Justice League War World?
I would not. If I'm being completely honest, if you've seen every DC animated movie, watch it. But if you watch it, wait for it to come to Max so that you can just watch it. if you're already paying for it. Do not go out and buy the 4K.
Right.
Do not buy the Blu-ray. If you're someone who's got to have all of them in the collection, because even the people that have all the DC animated movies, they probably have Killing Joke. They probably have all the really crappy ones. But
personally.
yeah. So I would say I would not recommend it. But if you got the time and you got a way to watch it for free, watch it for free. That's my recommendation of not recommending to watch it.
Yeah, basically. You want to pass it to Aiden quick?
Would you recommend it, Aiden?
I've never been the biggest fan of these DC animated movies. There's been a couple I've appreciated, but mostly it's their thing.
Yeah.
I don't really get this one. I like one of the segments. I think the other two segments are pretty meh. I guess that this is set up for the next thing, so if you're planning on watching the next thing, I guess I recommend it as like a HBO Max free thing, but I don't recommend it for people who aren't invested in the ongoing story of the Infinite Crisis or whatever the fuck is happening next. And I don't recommend it for people who aren't invested in whatever the hell was going on in this shit. Connor, do you recommend War World?
Elegantly put in. No.
No.
It's not like it teases Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it's not. I mean, I have to watch Crisis on Infinite Earths to know for sure, but it doesn't seem like required viewing for that.
Definitely doesn't.
It feels like the last 2 minutes he says there's a bigger crisis coming up, maybe a crisis on Infinite Earths, and then the movie ends, and you're like, okay, sure, okay, Crisis on Infinite Earths, cool, but I don't think it's really necessary to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely not a required viewing. I definitely think it's like, I mean, you could watch the end of it and just be like, all right, yeah, Crisis is happening, but they already announced at Comic-Con that Crisis was happening,
Right.
so like, either way, as long as you know Crisis is coming, what Crisis is, you're good. If you're gonna do something, you want to get ready for them doing animated Crisis, screw watching this movie, just go read Crisis. You do yourself a favor. You're good. There's your comic book recommendation for the day, and yeah.
Crisis is a great comic.
Yes,
It's very bloated, and it's a lot of continuity, so you have to have a lot of pre-knowledge of DC. I do own Crisis in its original run, all
Yep.
12 issues.
The only comic I know is Batman and Robin.
Which one?
From
Batman
Grant
and
Morrison,
Robin.
because I made Aiden read Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin, because
Yeah,
Grant
that's really
Morrison
good.
has the GOAT Batman run.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder's good. A lot of people have made good runs.
The Batman and Robin from like 2011 or
2009
12 or
to 2011.
that's really good. Although I don't like when the art style switches halfway through. I think the
Yeah.
second second art style is way worse than the first
The
one.
second art style sucks.
Yep.
I think it's
But-
issue like 13 it changes out
Yeah,
of
it changes
25.
like halfway
Definitely.
through.
And then it becomes
But-
like a garbage ass painted style.
Even with the worse art style, I still thought that was really good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Professor Pig. I would love to see in the Batman 2, Batman fight Professor Pig.
I liked Flamingo.
I love
too.
Professor Pig. I love Flamingo.
Yeah,
That's
you gotta have the old school
Professor
ones.
Pig is in Arkham Knight.
I think
Yeah. Yeah,
He is. He's one of the side missions.
Yeah, I've been replaying that game recently, so I definitely could agree with that.
I liked that comic a lot. I've read some Moon Knight.
You read some
I've
Marvel
read
comics?
some. No, not really. I never really liked Marvel. I mean, I liked some of the movies,
Yeah,
but
that's
I don't really like the comics.
That's the sad thing is like you read Marvel and you're like, oh, I read Marvel, but it's like, or I know enough from the comics, and you read stuff. But how can you read the comics when everything that Marvel puts out just doesn't matter?
I don't think I have relatively normal taste as far as the MCU goes, because my favorite one's Iron Man 3, and nobody likes that movie.
That's
Me
fine.
too.
That's fine.
Iron Man 3, Iron Man 3 is great.
Yeah, I don't know why people hate it. It's sad people hate on it so much. I think it's just
Because
one of
it's
those
kind of a
things.
real movie.
Yeah.
It's a real movie.
They hate that it's not. They hate that it's not a Marvel movie. Yeah.
They hate that it's not the format. But then they hate the format. So what do Marvel people want? Who knows? Whatever.
It doesn't matter. I'm not a Marvel person.
The only thing I would change about Iron Man 3
Is give us the real Mandarin.
No, I don't know what the Mandarin is. I don't
The
know.
real Mandarin's cool.
Yeah.
They didn't even give us the real Mandarin with Shang-Chi.
I don't
But
like
I
the
love
real
the Mandarin in that movie.
I like
love
the,
fake Mandarin.
Fake
Mandarin's
Mandarin's
good.
funny. I think the scene where he rescues all the people from the plane is super cool, and that should have been the end of the movie. I think the only part of the movie I don't like is when they're on the oil rig and there's like 18 million Iron Mans flying around.
Yeah.
Although that part's still kind of like decent for the emotional stakes, but it's kind of stupid.
That's true. Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs on 4K.
And also,
That's a recommendation.
I like Shane Black.
I
He's a good director.
recommend The Green Knight on 4K.
No, I recommend Shane Black's. What's the movie called?
Filmography.
No. Well, yeah.
Lethal Weapon.
No.
Predators.
Ryan Gosling.
The Nice Guys.
Yeah, that movie.
That's a
That
good
was
movie.
recommendation.
And that one's also set on Christmas, just like
Every other Shane Black movie.
pretty much.
But
But Iron Man 3 is also set on Christmas,
It is.
like The Nice Guys, and so is some of the Lethal Weapons. I think 2 is set on Christmas. The first one's not.
I've only seen the first Lethal Weapon.
They're all good, actually.
I have the 4-pack.
Yeah.
Richard Donner produced, and Richard Donner directed Superman 1 and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's enough about the animated whatever the hell's going on anymore. So in conclusion, I don't recommend this movie. I recommend Batman and Robin, the guy who the flamingo,
Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison.
Yep.
I recommend The Nice Guys and Shane Black's filmography. I kind of like The Predator. I know no one else does, but I think that
I never
movie's
saw
funny.
it.
I like when the twist of the movie is that the predators come to Earth to kidnap autistic people because autistic people are the next step in human evolution.
Maybe. Is that not true?
I don't know. It
Does
might
it
be.
know? It could be.
It's not a very good movie, but I enjoyed it. Do we have anything else? Are we done?
I think we're done.
Yep.
Joe, do you have anything else to say? You're our special guest.
Let's see. I would definitely second, for sure, don't recommend this movie, but I do recommend you read, if you're getting ready for Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths, read Crisis. Great storyline. Another recommendation for you guys, if you're looking for, like, you got Ninja Turtles coming out, if you want a DC animated movie to watch and you're just kind of looking to kill some time, watch some Turtles versus Batman.
That's
also,
a fun one.
Also, I recommend, there are 2 comics of the Batman and Ninja Turtles. I own both of them as graphic novels. I recommend you read those as well.
Batman and Ninja Turtles, the guy who drew those, was on Red Letter Media. It's that guy, Freddie Prinze Jr.
I know Freddie Prinze Jr.
Anyways,
Do you ever think about the
why don't you subscribe to Yoda Joe 93? He's
Yes, sir.
almost at 1,000 subscribers.
Who's
He's
that
at,
guy
like,
who did
what,
Batman?
almost 700?
Yeah, I'm trying to get 700 right now, yeah.
Let's get Joe up to 700. Come on,
Yes,
boys.
sir.
Who's that guy who did
Don't be
Batman?
bitches.
Yeah. Who's the guy that did what? Batman?
Grant Morrison?
No.
Scott Snyder?
Mom used to babysit him.
Pat Gleason. Yeah, Mom used to babysit one of the second.
Yeah.
Because Pat Gleason was on, after Grant Morrison finished his run on Batman and Robin, Pat Gleason and, who was it? Peter something took over.
Pat Gleason lived down the street from our
Pat Gleason
from our
lived 2
grandma.
houses away from.
Well, no, he lived
Oh,
at the end of the street.
he lived 2 houses away, or he lived next door to Dylan.
Yes.
He lived
But-
next door to Dylan
but
after
when-
he lived down the street from Mom.
Yeah, when he was a kid, he lived down the street from our mom, and our mom used to babysit him. And he always said he wanted to make comics, and he'd show them to our mom, and she'd be like, "Oh damn, this sucks."
I
And
mean,
now he's drawing Batman.
let's be honest about Pat Gleason's
I mean-
comic book art. I'm not going to say anything directly because he gave me a free page of his original art, a Martian Manhunter page, which is really cool. But he's kind of shitty.
Yeah, you take free shit, but I mean, if he give you shitty stuff, then
No, the art is good, but He's not one of my favorite artists.
That makes sense.
Other than the fact that my mom babysat him as a kid.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
It's kind of funny though.
It is
How
funny.
the world
It's
works.
funny how the world works. You never know who you're gonna run into, who you meet. It's always fun when you get cool encounters. I've had a couple cool encounters that have been
Dan
pretty
Jurgens
crazy.
is a great guy, the guy who created Apocalypse. Anyways, we're done with this video. Watch our fucking podcast.
Yes, sir.